Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks. Day 18 of the current situation here in Spain. Day 18 of the lockdown. It's the 1st of April, so a pinch and a punch for the first of the month and all of that type of stuff. And unfortunately, this doesn't seem to be an April Fool's joke. I wish it was, but it doesn't seem to be that way. Now, a quick update of what's been happening in Spain before I look at some of the comments that I received on the last video. And we can see here that Spain has now cracked the 100,000 mark with regard to the infection rate. But daily cases have fallen again. Now, yesterday there was a bit of a spike, but today they have fallen. So that's good news on that front. Now, there's been a lot of comments about what people can and can't do here in Spain. One of the things that we can do, of course, is we can go to the supermarket and we can take the dog for a walk. We can go to the pharmacy. We can do those types of things. But now I'm reading here that a lot of the local municipalities are imposing stricter measures in order to stop people going out of their homes too frequently. So there have been cases of people going to the shops 3-4 times a day, in the morning to buy bread, lunchtime to buy something for lunch, in the evening again to get something for dinner. But local municipalities apparently, or local councils, are cracking down on this, and some have even put in place a €30 minimum that you're allowed to spend. So no going to the shop just to buy bread for a couple of euros or a couple of litres of milk. You have to justify that you're going out and buying €30 worth of stuff at a time in some municipalities around Spain. Now, I don't think that's the case of my particular council, so just check to see what your particular restrictions are in your council at the moment. Now, some positive news is the government has said that they will gradually lift the measures of the state of alarm. And we can see here that it said on Tuesday that when the state of alarm ends, it will gradually lift the movement restrictions, the confinement and the stoppage of economic activity. The suspension of the state of alarm will be gradual from April the 12th if there is no other extension. So remember that there could be a further extension until the end of this month. So maybe it won't be until May until we have these restrictions lifted, but we don't know anything for certain yet. Now, the government has also clarified that self-employed workers will be able to work. They are not included in those restrictions that were announced on Sunday and which came into place on Monday, a couple of days ago. So self-employed people will be able to work. So if you're a mechanic, if you're cleaning pools, as I saw one person here in the Alicante region, you are going to be able to go about your day-to-day. However, if you are employing people, the people that you employ will not be able to work with you. Okay, now that's what I have read. I'm not 100% sure on that, but that's what I can understand. So if you are self-employed, you are allowed to go out and carry on your day-to-day activities. Now, some more good news for self-employed and small companies is that the government has postponed the payment of quotas, the social security quotas, for the next 6 months. And it says here that the moratorium also applies for the days that were not worked in March. So for example, let's say your activity stopped on the 10th of March and you had 20 days without any activity, you can reclaim that money back from the government. I'm not sure how to go about doing that yet. Obviously, you have to get in touch with the person that runs your accounting, maybe the gestor, your accountant, for example, to find out how this works. And I also suspect that if people are still working and they are still earning a reasonable salary, if you are self-employed or if your company is still able to function, it's most likely that these payments will continue to take place. But again, check with your lawyer, with your gestor, as to exactly what you need to do to get these payments suspended, because they are automatic payments. And for example, yesterday or the day before, my payment went through. So if I want to get some of that payment back, I'm going to have to go through the proper channels. So I'll have to be talking to my gestor about that. And the government has also announced they're going to protect people from losing their homes. I think there's a 6-month moratorium also on people being evicted from their home. So you can't be evicted in the next 6 months if you can't pay the rent because of these extenuating circumstances. On a lighter note, one newspaper suggested that the government should perhaps do a redundancy plan for politicians, and we would save €4.7 million a month, because obviously a lot of people are not working at the moment. but politicians are still getting their salaries in full. So a bit of humour here from that newspaper, but it's actually probably a good idea because Spain is a country with a huge amount of politicians. And if we can save a little bit of money and give it to people that need it, I'm all for that. Now, we mentioned before that there's more than 100,000 confirmed cases in Spain. An article came to light from the Imperial College in London, and it said that there are 7 million people infected by this in Spain at the moment. So 100,000 to 7 million, that's a big difference. Apparently a lot of people are not showing symptoms, a lot of people are asymptomatic, and of course there just aren't enough testing kits in place. Somebody wrote in the comment section before here that a lot of people are calling a special number and saying that they have the symptoms, but these cases are not being reported. So 100,000 to 7 million, that's a huge difference in numbers. So I don't know when we're going to get this information clarified, but obviously at the moment it's a little bit unclear exactly what the figures are. Now, taking a look at some of the comments from the last video, Gordon says that his shop in rural Andalusia is fully stocked. Plenty of fresh fruit and veg, only short of fresh meat, lots of frozen and cured meat though. I suspect most people go out once a week or so. Bread and bakery items are delivered as usual by the bakery van daily. So it's good to see in some of the smaller villages and smaller towns in Spain that the food shops are stocked. Of course, there's going to be a shortage in some areas because the deliveries are probably not able to get through, or there has been increased demand in some of the city areas, so we have to take that into account as well. But we can see here that bread and bakery items delivered as usual, so that's good to see that people in smaller villages are getting the supplies through, and there's no problems with the supply chain yet. Zach says that he's a Spanish major at the University of Mississippi. He enjoys the updates, and he was supposed to have his first language immersion course in Cádiz this summer, but he won't be able to make it until times are safer. It's a good point there, and it's important to say that when this problem does blow over, people that did have plans to come to Spain still continue to do that. Spain is a country that needs people to visit it. It's a country that needs people to come here and do these immersion courses. So important that we try to get the economy back to normal as soon as possible. However, I know that it's not going to be easy. Seb says here, hi Stuart, great video. Do you think property prices will drop? I can only imagine that they will. I don't know by how much. 2 or 3 people have got in contact with me asking me about this. But to be honest, I'm not really sure by how much they will drop. Obviously, the property market is a supply and demand business. So if there is a lot of supply, property prices are going to drop. If there's a lot of demand, property prices will go up. I think that's the way that the property market works. Stacy says here that she was also receiving the adverts for the funeral services and insurance on Facebook. Now, I said the other day that somebody complained that they were getting bombarded by advertisements from a funeral company and that it was a bit insensitive in these times. So again, I'll just put that out there that you have to be careful with what you get bombarded by during these times, because Facebook in particular, the algorithms work that they know who you are, they know how old you are, they know who your friends are, and they can specifically target that advertising to you. And if you are seeing these ads pop up on your homepage there, just be careful, because we don't know if they are genuine or fakes. And let's be honest, Facebook over the years has had problems with fake advertising, so be careful there. Now, Frank says here, great info, is the postal service from UK to Marmanor functioning? Now, I don't know in the UK if the postal service is functioning. I suppose that it is. Here in Spain, it is functioning. If you go to the Correos website or the Postal Service website, it says that they are functioning. Postal offices are open from 9:30 to 12:30 in the morning, but only essential workers are working at the moment. Now, to be honest, I haven't heard the usual postie motorbike going up and down the street over the last couple of weeks, and I've checked my letterbox a couple of times and there hasn't been anything in there since this began on the 14th of March. So again, different areas, I don't know. Maybe in Madrid it's still working, maybe in some of the bigger cities it's still working. If you have received mail over the last 14 or 15 days, leave a comment in the comment section below and we can hopefully answer Frank's question. Michael says that I mentioned the shortages of ventilators in the video. In the UK, companies such as Airbus, Dyson and Formula One racing teams are producing ventilators. Is something similar happening in Spain? The answer to that question is yes. Some Spanish companies have been asked by the government to produce sanitary material or health material. Companies like Seat, for example, the car manufacturer, are now producing this material here in Spain. So a similar case here with regard to that. Mari Carmen asks, what is going to happen when this lockdown finishes? Are we going to be able to go back to our lives normal again? In my opinion, this is a long-term problem and it's not going to go away in a matter of weeks or a few months and after that back to normal. Now, again, I don't know. I hope everything goes back to normal, but obviously the economic consequences are going to be huge for a lot of people and it's going to be difficult to go back to that normal way of life. Will this problem just suddenly disappear? Obviously not. We're all waiting on the same vaccine. We're all waiting on the same thing the world over. So obviously it's not going to go back to normal quickly. How long it takes, I don't know. I prefer to be glass half full in this situation and think that things can get back to normal sooner rather than later. But again, we'll have to wait and see on this. Now, Ryan here says, why is the term lockdown used instead of stay at home? The former is prison language, while the latter is law-abiding language. Now, the reason I'm using the word lockdown is because here in Spain, people are basically forced to be inside their homes 24 hours a day. We can't go outside to do exercise. We can't go outside for a walk. Now, I know in a lot of countries around the world, people are still allowed to do that. In some countries, you're still allowed to go for a walk with your partner. You can take your kids out for a walk, etc., but you can't do that here in Spain. We're only allowed to go outside if it's to go to the supermarket and for other minor things. And people in essential jobs are allowed to go to work. So in that sense, it is a lockdown. The next comment here says that lockdown in Spain is the same as being locked up, except that you don't have an exercise period in lockdown. And that's the key. People that are living in flats don't have that exercise period here in Spain. They're not allowed to go to the community areas of their buildings. They have to stay inside. And a lot of people here live in very small flats, which I'll talk about in a minute. So in this particular case, it's more comparable to a lockdown, in my opinion, than to a stay-at-home recommendation, such as you have in countries like Australia, New Zealand, etc. Now, Wilma here says that every 2 days we're looking out for your information. We are elderly people living in Spain and we're from the Netherlands. Thank you so much for what you do. Thanks for that, Wilma, and I want to say thanks to everybody out there for watching these videos. And anybody who doesn't speak Spanish and needs to get an idea of what's happening in Spain, that's the reason I'm putting these videos out there. So thanks for that comment there, Wilma. And finally, one here from Frank. He says, Stuart, I think you're doing a great job keeping us all up to date with what's happening in Madrid. My son, his wife and 2 grandsons are under lockdown in their 3rd floor flat in Madrid with no access to a garden. It's incredibly hard for families in this situation, and there must be thousands of them. Well, that's right, Frank. There are lots of people here in Spain that live in very small flats. In fact, we can see here that 4.5 million Spaniards, in fact, are living this confinement in houses of less than 60 square meters. I personally know people that live in 25 square meter flats, so I imagine they're doing it tough at the moment. But again, there's not much we can do because we're confined to these spaces. Some people have bigger spaces than others, but as we can see, a lot of people in small accommodation at the moment, and they must be doing it tough. So we're feeling for them. So that's all that I have today. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. I'll let you guys debate the situation out in the comment section. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego and stay safe.